Oh, we are back. Okay, I didn't realize we were back, but we are. I was just reading the schedule. It's like, oh, what have we got coming up next then? It doesn't matter. Swidz versus Seiko is coming up for match number 3 of the day, and it's 3 of 4 here in the European Grandmasters today. We only have 4 matches, but we'll have 5 tomorrow and the day after as well. Sottle, how did you enjoy your break?
Oh, enormously, Raven. It's
Just
just apparently I thought it was slightly longer than it actually was. I was just chilling out, slouching in my chair like the slob that I am. But yeah, obviously we are looking forward to getting back into this now, and of course we have the golden boy himself, Swidz, coming up here, the player who dominated the last 2 weeks of Swiss proceedings. He won week 2, he won week 3. That makes him the only player not only to have won back-to-back weeks, but also just to have won any 2 weeks. Surrender was the closest, I believe, with a first and second place. So he obviously led the standings overall, put himself sitting pretty at the top of Division A before a game was played, if that really matters, but most importantly in Division A. But I think perhaps most importantly, really started off on a much better foot than he ended, and really played the majority of the seasons last year, where he was struggling. He was towards the bottom of the division. So I think, kicking things off and showing that, hey, you talk about all these other French players that are dominating, but I'm the one that you should be focused on.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note as well that Swidz, along with the other French guys, were some of the first players to actually bring this Zoo Warlock that we've talked about a lot today already. Continue to talk about over the weekend in terms of the different builds. But yeah, one of the early adopters of this type of deck in this current meta, and we see his list there. Also, he is going to be playing, as I feel this is the case often, this Wrench Caliber Blastmaster Boom Warrior is his warrior deck submitted. So it is still the risky skipper along with the usual package, but instead of the Livewire Lances, it's the bomb package. I will say as well, though, the interesting part here is the bands are different. Is Seiko's lineup is a little bit of a strange one, isn't it, Soto?
It is. It has the deck that we chose to highlight at the start of the day, which is a deck that's very similar to the Control Warrior that we saw brought by Bunny Hopper and Viper in an earlier week, but even more slimmed down because there isn't even the Archivist Elysiana there at the top of the curve. So he is doing something very different, and following through on that theme, he's actually not including a Demon Hunter in his lineup either. He is the one player in Europe not to be doing that. So very, very different idea of what's going on here as far as Cycle is.
It's a bold move, Sutton. Let's see if it pays off. Mainly because Demon Hunter is just one of those classes that even though if you expect, everyone's going to be targeting it or expecting it, well, yeah, because it wins a lot of games, it's just good enough, almost if people are targeting it or not. So we'll see if it pays off for him as we do get into game number 1. Mage on the bottom for Seiko versus this Zoo list we saw from Swidz. So, as a Zoo's number 1 fan yourself, Soto, how do you feel it goes versus this Mage matchup?
I think it's a solid okay. It can struggle because, of course, no matter how big your stats get, they're still vulnerable into freeze stall, into mass clear. But you can manipulate around things like Blizzard and Reno Relicologist very effectively. It's just a matter of if the mage can stall all the way to the big power turns, whether they can get a big box to come down, or whether they can get a big, amazing Reno to come down, which of course just doesn't really care about how big you make it.
Yeah, a couple of key differences as well from the Zoo list we just saw. Ball Control Pilot to Victory is Swidz is still running his eggs in there as well. He's running Flame Imps, but also he's running that Zephyrus, which we saw pretty early on too. So there is some weird things inside, different things Swidz can do, like Egg to deal with or negate some of the AoE. But also if he draws the deck fast enough, which is probably likely to happen with this opening, then Zephyrus can just make things go a little bit crazy for Seiko. So it means that Swidz can maybe pull a win out of the bag when it would maybe be less obvious with some of the other versions.
Swidz looking like he wants to just develop a 3-4 here, which makes sense. Definitely on board with keeping the pressure going, not just giving Seiko a free turn here.
So many possibilities.
Yeah, I feel like if you're not playing Egg into this, then you're missing out on one of the better reasons to even play Egg, which is to deal with, although it's a weird one for Doomsday, but to deal with AoE, right? And also having the two-handed Gul'dans means as soon as Swidz draws a Matron or another Inspired Merchant, it means that he can effectively draw for days.
What to do? What to do?
I feel like coin into Mana Saber pays for itself right now, doesn't it?
It does. I guess there's that like sort of same argument from the early days of Hearthstone, of like the coin wild growth fallacy. Who was it? Amaz, I think, who was in like one of the first Hearthstone majors, and he was coining wild growth and everyone else wasn't. And he was like, well, yeah, if you coin wild growth, then you just get a coin every turn for the rest of the game. No,
not
that's
strictly true. Not strictly true.
That's not quite how that works. But yeah, I think in this case, it's a lot more accurate.
Imagine you told that story without some of the context, like just to newer Hearthstone players. They'd be like, no wonder Wild Growth got nerfed. Jeez.
Yeah.
If you coin it out, it just gives you a coin every turn. What is that? But I like it as well because at the moment, Seiko doesn't necessarily have to even swing it next turn. He can play Bone Wraith. And then you could swing it the turn after to get that Reno off 100% of the time, and maybe catch up on the board with that. So, I like it.
I got you, friend.
This is lacking.
Yep, pretty much the one that Swidz would have wanted here, I think. Swidz doing the little things correct as well. That was Direwolf positioning on point. Could have got an extra damage there if Direwolf had appeared.
Yeah, it didn't float 1 mana, so not really great positioning for this merchant here.
If he'd have played Wild Growth on 2, he'd have a coin this turn.
Apparently, yeah. I think it's still safe enough for Seiko to just play Bone Wraith and pass.
I wonder.
Yeah, he could also attack with the Mana Saber and then Ray of Frost something to protect his Bone Wraith. And then his Mana Saber is hidden behind the Bone Wraith anyway, so it's only really like Soulfire that interacts with it at that point. And then he could double dip and still get the extra ramp into the Reno next turn, possibly.
Wonder.
It's a risk, but it's a risk that might be worth it to protect the Bone Wraith as well.
Would you ever play Twilight Drake this turn?
Hadn't considered it.
Just
I will
just
do
'cause
so now.
It's beefier in terms of its damage, right? You can kill most minions. The Zoo's going to
Yeah.
play pre-scrap, of course.
What to do?
Whereas the
I
Bone
think
Wraith
I do
often
like
gets
this. I do think I like this protecting the Mana Saber line more. This is just a big damage investment, right? Although Swidz isn't playing a particularly bursty version of the deck,
right.
see, I might still be in like Boar Control's build mentality. So maybe just this investment into damage isn't as big a deal as it might have been against a different deck.
And that's what I was meaning by, I think Psycho's health total is okay enough to do this, and also this makes the Reno better, because he can deal more damage, and also the Bone Wraith kind of gets farmed, just on board. Obviously outside of the Ray of Frost, which is a separate play you mentioned. One of the benefits, we did talk a lot about the negatives of Flame Imp and why you're personally not a fan of it in the Zoo list in general and its drawbacks, but one of the upsides is with Carpet, it does a lot of damage, like 4 for a 1-drop. Absurd. It's obviously like pre-scrap Imp. You don't even need the buff.
The light protects me.
Yeah.
Let's help him catch up.
Argent Squire here over the Kobold Lackey. Makes sense. Both plays leave a 2-1 on board and kill the Twilight Drake. But this way he still has the Kobold Lackey in his hand for damage. Most importantly, the Magic Carpet not only allowed him to clear the board there with the rushing minions, it also added 6 additional health to the board, which is insane when Psycho has his ramp into Reno Relicologist turn.
Also, the fact that there's just a merchant on board as well, which is a 4 health 2-drop, which is perfect if you want to just be counter Reno in mind. So maybe now is it Bone Wraith Ray? maybe now you trade because the plan didn't go that well because of the carpet. Oh, no, he's going to go for range. Carpet down, that's probably priority number 1 there for Seiko. Oh, okay. Enjoy drawing all of the cards, Mr. Swidz.
3, 5, 6 on board. Soulfire is 10. Kobold Lackey is 12. Zephyrus is not active.
He could just... Let me just double check. He's not played the Soulfire yet, right?
Not played a Soulfire? No, he hasn't.
Easy. Just Soulfires into Hand of Gul'dan into second Soulfire. No problem.
Ah, like where your head's up.
I mean, after playing 2 other 1-drops, is that even that crazy a suggestion? Because even if you don't Soulfire, if you don't throw Zephyrus, well, you get closer to having it active, right?
Great.
Oh yes, Swidz. We can be friends.
You've always yeet Soulfire. Oh, minion!
This should be Soulfire. Most importantly, though, throw the Zephyrus, which means that digging deeper, that Zephyrus can just be lethal from hand regardless. Seiko has Malygos active, so he could get the Nova.
Yep.
And is that his... It's not his only out, right? Bone Wraith, Ray of Frost saves him.
I wonder.
Potentially.
Yeah, this is still twin spell version as well, so he can lock out multiple minions. Likely the 3/4 and the Fiendish Servant in terms of like what's representing the most damage on board. Fiendish Servant essentially like trades for free just because of the way the death rattle works.
Yep.
What to do?
And the good thing for Seiko is this Malygos, he didn't choose to play it this turn, it's just as active next turn. It's not like he has to trade off using a dragon or not.
You win this.
It's going to be game, just too much to handle there. Not only the 4 health from the faceless lackey minion that summoned, the merchant, but also just that egg, the difference. We saw board controls list last game, much more bursty and aggressive. And not that one's necessarily that much better than the other in this instance, but you just see the difference, right? The egg, way better versus AoE, but also Swidz has less access to burst. So just interesting to see how these zoo lists are developing and changing as more players get a hold of it and maybe recognize the deck cell archetype's potential. But Swidz take another win with the zoo, getting off to a great start in this week number 4.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in the end, I like that he went for the Malygos line. Felt like the winning line, like the Bone Wraith stuff, it didn't really feel like it was going to get there. Like even best case scenario, you're like surviving a turn, right? You're not formulating a win condition. Whereas Frost Nova there, complete board lockout. Swidz would have to more or less skip a turn. He can hard cast a Skull of Gul'dan from hand, or Hand of Gul'dan, sorry, from hand. And then maybe that gets him closer to activating his Zephyrus. But at least then Swidz, Seiko would have some kind of plan. So I like that he went for it. Obviously, it didn't pay out. But again, Seiko just looking strong, but not quite getting the results that he needs, which I think is the story of his GM, really.
Yeah, and also just a small note, he would have had a Malygos on board, right? So he would have had something to actually trade and work with. So yeah, it's just an extra little point, but I do think the Malygos was the overall play there. But looking at Switz's lineup now, he does have his Demon Hunter banned out. He has his Rogue, which just at a quick glance, is it a subtle Rogue? Yes, it is. It's double 2 of Stealth Rogue for him there, and then his Warrior is going to be the, as I mentioned, the bomb package in the General Pain Warrior. But it looks like the Rogue is going to be the focus there, and it's fairly standard. Although I say fairly standard, it's a 2 of Boom Pistol Bully. I spy, Sol.
It is a 2 of Boom Pistol Bully. I actually sat in Deck Builder for a while, like trying to put together the Rogue deck. In my opinion, like for this week, it was so hard. Because I just, however I built it, I just always had to sacrifice something. Because I wanted to play a lot of Boom Pistol Bullies, I wanted to play Shadow Steps, and I also wanted to play Frozen Shadow Wheel. And no matter which way I sliced it, I couldn't play all of those cards. And you can
Right.
see that here with Swidz. He is playing the Shadow Step. He's playing double Boom Pistol Bully. He's not playing any Frozen Shadow Weavers. Which, I think that'd be interesting to look at what his ban strategy is when he's coming up against a Demon Hunter lineup. Of course, he has the luxury here where Seiko is just not playing Demon Hunter. So we don't really have a true insight into what his overall ban strategy is here.
In the meantime, Seiko is going to be on a archetype I thought was going to be a little bit more popular this week than it turned out to be. Only 2 players bringing Galakron Priest. But a deck that is, I would say, Sol, very strong, but does have a few clear weaknesses. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that. What
And
do you think those weaknesses are, Raven?
Hunter is a big one.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
But in general, what the problem I've had with this list, because I've played I'd say a reasonable chunk of Galakron Priest and similar builds to this one, is that when you don't quite have the correct answer at the right time, you can just get smoked down pretty quickly. And although you have access to certain levels of heal, none of it is game winning. I feel it's not like you run tons of taunts either. So.
Sorry,
Just the Van Cleef package.
It's just this card it's just the bad news card. That's what it is. You just get to learn how screwed you are on any given turn.
Yeah, that's on one side of it. I've also been Varanus Unleash the Hounds against me as Hunter by a priest. So sometimes it's also the good card, the good news card, should I say? But yeah,
I mean,
overall, I think there are clear gaps in the game plan of priest, or clear turns that you can make aggressive pushes where they don't really have great things to do. For example, I want to say, is it called Time Rip? Am I just making names now? The 5-mana hard removal is a lot of mana to spend on 1 minion. The second you make a board of 2 or 3 sort of beefier minions of like 3-4 health plus, Priest really struggles dealing with that.
It does, yeah. Especially since most lists now are trimmed down to the point where there's no Plague of Death at the top end.
Yes, yep.
You can still discover copies, but that isn't always the case. But yeah, for sure, enormous boards do become a bit of a problem. Although Soul Mirror is always the one thing you do have. Don't make a big board of symmetrical minions, I guess. Like a bunch of these 6/6s will get Soul Mirrored away, whereas have a high health, slightly lower attack board, yes, Priest can really have a that.
Yeah, I think Galakron timing is very important as well, because you have the benefit of the insta-kill from Galakron and then the value generation, but you also have much more damage permanence against you once you Galakron as well. So that can be something that can be taken advantage of in a bit of a later game as well for the opponent. But I do like that finally, I don't know if you'll remember this, Sol, and yes, I'm going to try and credit here. But when we first were speaking about Galakron Priest a while back now, maybe even week 1.
I know exactly what you're going to say, and I'm so amazed I haven't heard this yet. I was waiting for it for so long, but go ahead.
Yeah, I like to be gracious, don't I, Sol? Like, just let things happen. But I did say Apotheosis was a card that people should play, and guess what? It's the card that makes it work.
Yeah.
I'm going to go that hard into it.
Job done.
Yeah, and honestly, I think, after... What was the matchup we were testing? It was Demon Hunter, right? Against, early days of Galakron Priest?
Yes, yeah.
And I, immediately agreed. It just doesn't matter because I have nothing that, punishes the Demon Hunter in my deck. I'm just surviving, and surviving isn't really good enough. Whereas Apotheosis can just, actually be a swing and actually lock out games. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it.
Let's see if it has much of an impact now. We've kind of just been chatting about the overall powers, but it is the first time we've seen this Galakron Priest in quite a while. It's a very fun deck to watch. It's just can get a bit spicy in the late game, but we'll see if we even get to that. Swidz is definitely piling on the pressure here, and as you mentioned a little bit earlier, I would even say this is deemed a big board, right? Because this is hard for a priest to just clear, because there's 3 very oddly shaped minions, no real great targets to say Shadow Madness, not only 1 target in range of Shadow Word Death, of course, and so on. So pretty awkward to deal with here. Swidz, I think, needs to get rid of this Shield of Galakron in the most efficient manner. Push.
Yeah, and I think it's why Swidz was so eager to push early with the decent-sized Edwin. Seiko is only playing 1 copy of Shadow Word Death in his deck. Obviously, we're way before Time Rip mana at the time, so I think making the 6/6 just to get early damage through is a pretty good idea.
Yeah, one thing to note as well, if you're not overly familiar with the up-to-date lists and maybe played against it before, the Moag Artificers are no longer really popular in Galakron Priest, so it's not like you can see Moag Tenants so quite often earlier.
See the Shadow Madness getting used there for Seiko, and I think that is the #1 gotcha card in this deck, as far as I'm concerned. It's the one thing that causes the biggest disasters if you don't play around it. Not only the number of like prime minions that Priest can just steal and just shuffle the Death Rattle into their deck instead, but there's just a variety of ways across multiple matchups where that card can be really punishing. I think Swidz had considered it in that spot. He kind of gave a little resigned nod when he saw the Shadow Madness Penance combo come out. I think that was really fun to avoid that scenario that was still realistic.
Yeah, I think sometimes it happens, right? And if you try and play around that too much, you end up making very bad turns. That's just often the case with Hearthstone. But you are right, Shadow Madness can really flip the game upside down. At the moment, though, the Breath of Infinite's looking pretty good on this board. And the card I actually didn't rate too much until I started playing it was the Sethic. Sethic Veil Weaver.
Veil Weaver, yeah.
Yeah, if that sticks, the fact that one, you can just add into Apotheosis, which is kind of insane. But if that sticks, the Priest just always has cards. And it negates the Priest key weakness, which is card draw, by card generation.
Yeah, it turns out 2-mana Lyra, pretty good.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, remember that card? It was good. This one cost 2.
Still good.
Yeah.
Look at that. Galakron check. That's all.
1 out of 4.
So now that the...
Does have 2 and 3 in hand, though, so not that big a disaster for him.
And now the aggressive opening's kind of been stunted by Seiko here. Swidz has to sit back and go, okay, how do I win this in the much later game when my opponent has access to his Galakron, when he has access to, say, like more freedom of time rips, Soul Mirror, Murazond, etc. Because there is Krunks and Shadow Step, which is always to be feared, of course. But that's still a few turns away yet, and also Seiko is on 27, so I feel like if you miss Step versus Priest, you can end up put yourself in a very, very bad spot very quickly. The amount of times I've played into a Murazond feels like a lot, but I also feel like the card's good enough for that to be the case quite often.
It's Wondrous Wand. That's the scary thing in this matchup. Because you draw your cards so much faster than the Priest. Like, if you play card for card, value for value, you're going to lose as the rogue. So your goal has to be just, like, get through my deck so much more efficiently and have my huge tempo spikes with Wondrous Wand and with Galakron, and just do too much stuff too quickly. The 0 card draw Priest just doesn't have the consistency to be able to deal with that on a regular basis. So if you then get into a scenario where you play Wondrous Wand, and then your Priest opponent just plays it right back at you with a Murazond the turn after, that can just really mitigate a bunch of that advantage. And suddenly the Priest has just picked up all the tools that they need to stabilize. Certainly my experience with this matchup, the Priest is actually very comfortable when it gets to the late game. And Rogue doesn't really have the teeth to get enough done in the early game either. So I've actually had a ton of success with the Priest side matchup, which just feels so wrong. I hate saying that. When Priest beats Rogue, Hearthstone is broken. That's my assessment.
Well, I look at it in a very simple way, where it's just, if Rogue generates value by making a ton of 1/1s late game that do stuff, right? Priest generates value by making a ton of actual minions that do stuff late game. So every time your opponent makes a 1/1, you're making an actual minion that generally has positive effects anyway. So yeah, you just get outvalued to such a large extent. It feels weird to say that versus a Rogue, but it's true. The onus is definitely on the Rogue to win the game, if that makes sense.
Yep. It's very hard to do if you just don't get off to a very fast start. You can do it because it's generally only Breath of the Infinite as the early AoE. Holy Nova has mostly been cut now. And then if you obviously have like the big Edwins as well, where there's just no Shadow of Death, right? Like if that Edwin from Swidz was like a 10-10 instead, right? Way too much of it. If you don't get those starts, it's almost impossible to avoid just like rolling back into this grindy late game plan. And I think that is his wheelhouse.
Yep. I mean, this turn actually displays the point perfectly, I think. Swidz has done an insane turn. He's almost spent none of his real cards. Had a halt, spent 7 mana, generated more cards in hand, and they're just 3/1/1s and a 2/4. You know, like, they're just not killing him, are they?
Nope.
And like, boom, there's a Winged Guardian. Not even though I say that with Seiko playing a rogue card to generate that, but I don't know. I feel like outcomes like that happen often post Galacron Priest. Do you think the weapon is vital for Swidz to get on Galacron in this matchup?
Vital is a very emotive word. Extremely important, yes. But my general rule with Galacron in Rogue and in most decks is I will greed it as long as I have a turn that I can happily look myself in the mirror and, pull passable. And then I'll, greed it out and try and wait for that passable. Especially in this situation where Swidz is in 3 out of 4. He's just waiting for one more.
Okay, I'm surprised.
Handle Breath?
I wonder whether he should Shadow. Mainly because very recently I got the Wax Shred Shadow combo on me, and that beat me up. So I'm just thinking, like, if Swidz is playing this long, slow game and he has to play it at this point, then if you land that on anything big, that's just 3 threats with no real commitment, especially if they end up being like a death round.
Well, again, I don't necessarily think he's at the point where he needs to do it. I actually agree with that pick, because I think Swidz's plan should be draw more cards, find his Heist Baron Togwaggle, find his last Invoke, get the job done quickly, try and make, one huge board that wins the game. There's no, death. I think even with Shadows in his deck, he loses the value game.
Okay.
Late game. So I just don't think setting up that plan is a winning strategy.
This is your time.
I think you just have to get it. And this is kind of it, right? Like, it's not Wondrous Wand, because it's not discounting the cards. This is exactly the interaction I was talking about, where Priest plays 0 card draw. So eventually Rogue can get into the position where they're just trying to beat the top 15 cards of Seiko's deck with all 30 of theirs. That's doable. But when Seiko actually starts drawing cards as well, it gets a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, the Priest hand does not normally look like this pre-Galacron, right? Post-Galacron, you end up generating stuff, and not all that stuff is playable, so your hand does get pretty full. But pre-Galacron, this is pretty crazy. And also the Fate Weaver being in hand now means that this hand is going to become very playable very quickly. So yeah, this is a huge problem right now for Swidz.
Yeah, and Seiko is on 2 Invokes as well, so that makes it active.
I love Fate Weaver, honestly. What you think of Priest, honestly, doesn't really matter, but I think the card is so sweet.
I have a turbulent relationship with it, Raven. I'm way too good at drawing Fate Weaver and nowhere near good enough at drawing Invoke cards. So I play a lot of 4-mana 3/6 Dragon.
Yeah, me too, and I love it.
Oh, okay, sure.
I think it's just a good card, right? Hell going to be used to kill the first part of Winged Guardian, but there is still just the Murras on there. Doesn't the rogue hand look like it's full of just rubbish minions in comparison?
Yep.
Choose Cyril. So many options.
Who even is the aggro in this matchup. Swidz is at 19, and the Priest has an 8/8 on the board. What has occurred here?
It's why I'm quiet, honestly, because it's just... This actually happens quite regularly with this deck, right?
Yeah,
as long as you don't die straight away, you just say, like, I get to play with every card in the game ever. and you don't. And you just end up overpowering them because with cards such as Murazond, which is basically the same as what your opponent just did, but you get an 8/8 extra, which seems insane, obviously. And then all the removal, and then you have endless threats, because honestly, even some of the worst priest minions still generate stuff or are stuff to play for free. So there's so much to do. And are you at the Soul Mirror?
Yeah, this is really cool, right? Like, it's
Pretty
actually
solid
not...
Soul Mirror, yeah.
It's not super relevant, but the Flame Tongue conga line is actually kind of cool. That the Flame Tongues don't attack each other because they have 0 attack, and then every other minion on the right-hand side keep marching into the flames. Like,
Gonna dodge it, though.
Like I said, not actually relevant. It just would have been cool to see it happen. Just every minion sliding over.
Jeez, Seiko, I wanted to see that.
The Reborn would have interrupted it, but like, it wasn't that good. Never. Make the good play.
It was
instead.
cool in our hearts.
Yeah. All right, that's pretty scammy.
What's he even looking for? Crown into double Tyrion? I don't think there's no point picking one now, is there?
Probably not. No.
Has he got anything in his deck? You know what he needed? He needed a scheme into Kronks. Take a leap out of Viper's butt.
He does probably need the Viper game plan at this point. There it is. All right.
Easy peasy.
Spell Lackey, scheme. Let's go.
Was it ever a statue turn, Sol?
Darkness wanes.
Statue. A kobold? Golden kobold? No.
Look at his hand,
Yeah.
it's big enough, right?
Yeah.
That would have been insane. I would have loved it. I will say, very seriously, I'm not really sure what one does now. I don't know what one really achieves.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Kind of
really
agree.
sure about that, Swidz.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just pretty dead. I honestly, like, I do kind of like this, because it at least sort of shows that Swidz's head in the matchup is kind of in a similar place to mine is, at least in terms of, like, the strategy I was explaining. Like, this is kind of how you have to win. You have to explode and just do a million things in one turn, and just hope that the Priest can't deal with it.
Right.
They don't have the smooth enough removal, they don't have the clean enough removal, because they don't play Death in the hand. Hopefully, they don't have enough resources either. But Seiko Murazond is kind of
What is illusion?
Yeah, and one of the big problems as well is without Soul Mirror being played, we can see that whenever Swidz pushes, this happens. And then what? And then that's the big problem, isn't it? When I'm not even sure what happened, right, in this game, I'll be honest. But Seiko got to late game comfortably, and it looked like without spending any removal. I know that isn't true, but that's what it feels like, right? With Soul Mirror being active at this point in the game is crazy. There's still 2 time rips. He's not played Galakron yet.
He's at 26 and he's just played a card that cleared all the relevant threats and then made himself a board.
Yeah, and already the value just doesn't end.
He just put a dragon in his hand, so his Breath of the Infinite didn't clear his own.
Too many cards.
Ah, Priest.
And I'll let you all know, those watching at home, Priest looks pretty fun and powerful. You're correct. It's pretty fun to play, pretty powerful. Just try not to queue into the mirror.
Too late.
Because that's when you might start not enjoying the deck as much. You'll see the Krunks come down. It almost certainly has to be a Shadow Step, right? Or do you think he has to keep it on board?
Not sure what the step is for, if not the Bronx here.
Just tons of spells, maybe, with the
Maybe.
Ethereal. Boom Pistol to stop a Murazond a few turns.
Oh, maybe.
I just don't know.
Six on board. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
just don't
Yeah,
know.
this game's just a disaster, I think.
What God's ear.
And this is one of the few moments, I guess, where we see the evolution of Rogue be a bad thing, right? Because remember, you know, Rogue, obviously with Leroy gone, it's different, but Rogue used to be, you look at Cold Blood, even like tempo plays, SI7 agent, weapons, stuff like that. Now Rogue is such sort of pretty heavily value-based right now. It means that it doesn't often at all get those aggressive openings with quick kills outside of Van Cleef.
Alright, hold the actual dog and bone, Raven. He got a prime from his faceless lackey. That is a remarkably big deal here.
Just wait till Seiko steals it, it's fine. Can he just Murzon to get his own prime?
That's not how that works.
Did he not? Oh no, he summoned it. Sorry, I thought he generated it. Apologies. I didn't see it was summoned from the faceless. I thought he generated it from him. Here's a question.
What
Oh no,
is a
doesn't matter.
woman's will?
Question revoked.
Okay, fine.
No, I answered the question before it's point.
We are all bound to fate.
Is this just going to be time rips?
Yeah, I think it's just
A
a rip.
time rip, should I say?
Job's done.
Yep. Yeah, I like this. Oh, Cabal Shadow Priest!
Running out of cards.
The Murloc has Divine Shield and almost certainly will not die this turn.
What did I say, Saul, about just wait till he steals it?
Swidz, get a backstab or something!
Yeah, wait.
Backstab your own minion! Togwaggle scheme!
Oh.
Things are happening, Raven!
Boom pistol togwaggle scheme. Just play a boom pistol every single turn of the game.
Yes! Now we're talking.
Nobody move, and no one gets hurt.
Don't buff the Prime, please. Just don't want to see it happen to you.
Darkness wanes.
Now,
Okay, so good news, at least Cabal Shadow Priest now costs 11. That's excellent news if you are a Swidz fan.
it's actually a very good setup. Based on what we can see in hand, obviously, like the boom pistol's locking out a ton of stuff right now. Oh! Never mind, he can get the prime anyway.
I mean, once his cards are back to normal cost, he could get 2.
Oh, priest.
But I think, like, Seiko doesn't actually want... He just doesn't want Swidz to have.
Yes.
Priest is like the worst kind of sibling. That they'll steal your toys and then just break them. They didn't want to play them. They just want to make you miserable.
I'm out of cards.
Does this honestly... Oh,
What?
he can't get around this, can he?
He has currently very little way to prevent himself from 4 damage.
I was working out whether he could somehow get his Wasteland Warden down, or whatever it's called, and then flick his own minion. But that wouldn't work either. It's just to try and kill him. If I can't have my
that's
minions,
so dumb on
you
so
can't have
many
your
levels,
minions.
Raven. Like, it's genuinely impressive how stupid that idea was.
Have you seen the game of Hearthstone we're casting right now, Saul?
I mean,
Sometimes
yeah,
it takes
it's-
a very stupid approach.
Yeah. Okay, Shadow Stepping Taunt Laggy just to do it all over again. Makes sense. Needs to make more board space now. Okay,
Taunt?
us.
Wait, should he taunt his own... What? He should taunt his prime, right?
Why?
Because... Oh, okay, never mind. I didn't know how many more cards he wanted shuffled in, that's all, because of the fatigue, but if he's playing 2, right.
Kapow! Stolen flip that was then discounted, so it's even cost 10 under Boom Pistol Bully. Killing you with a Wasteland Assassin that was generated off the Pharaoh Cat that I stole from you earlier. Hi, I'm a priest. Nice to meet you.
It's just a weird game of Hearthstone, isn't it? And that's what happens with Priest a lot against it when it's not an aggro deck it's facing. When it's an aggro deck, the aggro deck normally peters out or it kills the Priest, right? One or the other. In the value matchups, it does look a bit pitiful, at least in my experience and what we've seen, at least in that one game sample size of if you try and go value for value versus Priest, I don't know if there's any deck in the game that can do that. But you have to try, I guess. So it always looks just like a slow, drawn-out death for the opponent of the Priest. But you do have to make a go of it. So fair play for Swidz for trying there. But once that Van Cleef got dealt with, and us seeing what Seiko's hand was, just went downhill from there. Rough.
I want to rephrase just about all of that because I think it's important that people don't get confused. I don't think what Swidz did there was try and play a value game. Like, his deck ended up empty because he played a Wondrous Wand and a Galakron and everything else. I think what he did was consistently play aggro as best that he could. He just got to the bottom of his deck in the process of doing it, right? Because Boom Pistol Bully, which is what he ended up scheming, was like his aggro card in that position.
Right.
He was trying to lock a board. He wasn't trying to get huge value out of anything. He was just trying to deny the clears from the Priest so that he could actually end the game. Generally, that's how I think you have to win that matchup, is just by exploding aggressively and just doing a million things in one turn because there's no Plague of Death. But they play so many other things that can just stall and buy time that eventually it just kind of defaults to a value match because that's what Priest gets into.
Yeah, and I apologize if what I was saying was misleading. I did overall mean that, you know, once you've not done that aggressive push, they outvalue you, right? As opposed to you wanting to play a value game versus them. So yeah. Anyway, the Galakron Priest, just a reminder, only 2 players in Europe brought this deck, and so far it's done a good job for Seiko with a 1-game 1 win this weekend. So he's going to be done with that one. He's got Rogue and Mage left versus Switz's Rogue and Warrior. So again, we are just seeing how Seiko's lineup performs. It is probably the most different out of everyone who's submitted this week. We're going to Mage versus Warrior for game number 3.
Doomsayer again early for Seiko. It looked like just about the only keep there. And that Doomsayer might be kind of crucial here because it will potentially lock out at least the tempo of the Greyheart Sage. Whether or not Swidz will just go ahead and choose to draw the cards anyway will remain to be seen.
Seiko does have some really good tools in his early hand, though, so he has Doomsayer if he wants to play into these stealth minions. And then just having Mana Saber and Reno and a coin just feels so secure for that mid game, which I feel like is what the Mage is most scared of, right? It's just around that turn 4, 5, 6. Because after turn 6, or at least 6 mana, Zephyr on 2 into Wild Growth, the Mage player normally just is so safe with all the late game options they have, and this is looking good, Seiko. And do you think this is are you a draw card gamer here, Soto?
I will answer that, but this is absolutely not what I want to see from Swidz. Looking at his webcam now for the first time, this is last year GM Swidz. This is what he looked like through most of his games. Like, you've cast him this season, he did not look like this, did he? He was leant forward, he was alert,
his
he was
webcam's
clapping
not
his
gone out of
hands.
direction yet. What's going on?
Yeah, he was clapping his hands, he was
webcam away.
banging his desk, he was moving about all over the place. Like, this is the face of a man that's just been humiliated by Priest, for sure. And I understand that, but he needs to snap himself out. But, no, I would not have drawn cards there with the Greyheart Sage, to give you the short answer to the question that you actually I was actually kind of interested, and it's super caster vision because I was staring at the Doomsayer, about how much upside there actually was in developing the Skybateer on turn 2 over just, like, pressing dagger, for example. And the answer to that is that it does allow you to start attacking with the 3-1 and still have the stealth minion for the Greyheart Sage. But it's just kind of interesting, something that I hadn't really thought about before because I was staring directly at a Doomsayer and thinking about the implications.
Yeah, because you've either got the draw of the Doomsayer to come down anyway because you have the the
Great Heart Sage?
Mistress. Sorry. Yeah, you either get the draw because you have the Spy Mistress down anyway, so you don't lose the Skyvateer, or the Doomsday comes down, then you just don't lose the Skyvateer. So yeah, there's definitely some upsides.
And then you still have the setup later where you can just replay Skyvateer and then play your Grey Heart Sage anyway. It's just kind of interesting. Again, super caster vision-y though. I just want to clarify that I'm well aware how caster vision that was.
I think I like this boom pistol.
I like it too.
Regardless of the coin, Mana-Saber acts the same way anyway, so you lock out the turn 6, right?
Exactly. It's a 6 mana available turn for Seiko, whether he attacks with Mana-Saber or not. So that means Reno, and that means Ultimate Dragon Caster scams come into play. So I think this is the prime turn.
Yeah, one thing it does mean is that Seiko doesn't have to attack with this Mana-Saber this turn, because he can't do anything with that mana, or do too much with that mana anyway. But he did choose to reveal it. Guess his hand doesn't really line up well into a 7-drop regardless. I mean, there's only exactly Tiamat that he would be saving to ramp into anyway. And I guess not attacking with it for 2 turns is a little bit too slow.
There was a counter-argument to the Boom Pistol Bully. It's that potentially his follow-up wasn't super good. Although I guess he did have Edwin potential. So yeah, he could still capitalize on it. I still like the play, but you can see here that, you know, the potential 6-cost turns he was scared of, he's kind of still scared of now, even after an extra turn of development, which is kind of a giveaway. But Bone Wraith is actually such a huge card in Boom Pistol Bully methods. I know that, like, a lot of the time when Boom Pistol Bully was everywhere, a lot of the top players were talking about how, you know, they would just skip playing Bone Wraith on turns where it looked really weird just not to be playing Bone Wraith, just so they would have something to do on the turn when they inevitably got Boom Wraith. So it is just about the best answer you can have.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, if follow-up, even though the follow-up might not have been that good, if you don't play Boom Pistol Bully there, and then Reno comes out, do you really want to play Boom Pistol Bully into Reno that can just trade ping?
Yeah.
So then, you know, even though the follow-up doesn't feel good, you've guaranteed stopped Reno or Dragoncaster coming down for a turn, and you have stuff on the board, right? So, a little bit unfortunate this is going to be cleaned up, or at least mostly cleaned up. Oh, wait, no. Oh, I thought the Skyvateer was dead as well. Never mind, this is pretty solid.
Yep. The 2 4-health minions were the ones on the outside, the Bully and the Miscreant, so they were very, very likely odd on to survive. So the damage can just keep on coming here for Swidz now. It does look like he's leveraged this Boom Pistol position very nicely.
I think I just like this Wrapped Goal.
Same.
Just go. Probably as good a turn as it's ever going to get for a coin deep freeze, you think, on the Wrapped Golem. Get the 2 elementals on board. A little bit afraid of Flick, but if you're going to live your life afraid of Flick, then you're never playing that card in it anyway. Do you think there's merit to save the coin because there's access to not only Dragon Queen on Extraza, but if he wants to be even slower, coin into the Amazing Reno on turn 9?
Yeah, or coin box, even if he wants to live in that world.
Sure. If you...
But actually, like, this scenario was actually why I kind of didn't like the trade much. Obviously, you're scared of, like, Hunter's Calling and all kinds of things in this scenario. Oh, okay. But you did really weaken yourself to just single target stuff. Seiko doesn't play a copy of Polymorph in his deck, so that supports Swidz's play there. But Coin Deep Freeze was always available, right? And Swidz knows it. And I think
Time runs out on me.
that by not going face. Because otherwise he'd just still have a 5-1 that the Reno could trade into anyway. 1-1 taunt. So he kind of locks out Coin Deep Freeze as an option. As it stands, that's just not
On wings of evil.
In the meantime, Swidz, though, can generate a Dragon, but I think most importantly, has Shadow Step active, so this Van Cleef can go nuts if he really wants it.
Yeah. He's also
Oh.
shadow stepping a great target in this matchup as well, because he does need to be prepared to go fairly deep if it gets to that point. Got some great options to be doing that now.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
Now the march of the 1/1s. Sheep and the crab, I guess. Anyway. Pushing some damage, but most importantly the Van Cleef up there. Conjurer's Calling can deal with Van Cleef in a roundabout way if Seiko feels the need to, but most importantly he does have access to Deep Freeze to just lock that 10 attack and make the board a little bit more manageable.
Oh, this thing, it's a scarab. It's a scarab beat.
Yeah. Beetle. Grab. Same thing. Ooh. Boom Pistol does look out Coin Reno and Swidz. Do you think Swidz is thinking about that now? Because
Should be. Absolutely.
in a weird way, Psycho's kind of even on board, I would say.
Yeah. I think it would be a much more promising play if you could, like, Seal Fate the 3/6s or something and take them off the board as well, and then play your Boom Pistol Bully and protect your 10/10. As long as these water elementals are on the board, that they can just,
So
like, freeze the
many
Edwin and the Boom Pistol Bully anyway. Like, you just don't have that much threat backing it up.
What about Ysera this turn?
Feeble magic.
Ever fancy that?
Sorry, say again?
A potential like Ysera turn. If the water elementals are going to freeze stuff out anyway, Ysera's in a roundabout way immune to freeze because its card generation is the number one.
It's fair. Yeah.
And it's not like he's close to lethal. If Swidz is on full health, right? He's not going to die from 2 water elementals and a goose.
I think he's decided if he's going to get Coin Reno'd.
Job's done.
He wanted to add one more huge threat because he felt like he needed it, and I think he decided if he's getting Coin Reno'd, he would rather it with Drac than Sarah.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because it's just one of those weird questions you always ask when a card like Mates Reno or Twisted Nether and so on is, if I play this, will my opponent even bother Renoing? Is a weird one, right? Because the Ysera, definitely you'd Reno that away, whereas the Draconid, maybe there was something to deal with it.
Nobody move.
Yeah, but most importantly, not playing another big threat there. No, absolutely not. He would, like, he could just freeze your Edwin with one of his water elementals, and then he's fine. You know, like, you just don't have to. So I do agree that Swidz had to push a little bit harder to get the Reno to come out. Sometimes it's not there, and you just win the game.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
Pressure plate.
Is it just a box?
Okay, AoE mode.
Slowly but surely, after a million spells, these minions might die. Oh.
Discover 2 Warlock card. Okay, sure.
Hey, that's a nice heal. Fiendish, Sacrificial Pact it.
Yeah.
Something else to attack.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
Agreed.
And now
I think as long as Seiko didn't, like, develop a board there as well off his puzzle block, I think Swidz would feel okay with that. Obviously, he'd rather have had a minion stick. Like, Pharaoh's Blessing went first and actually landed on one of his minions or whatever. But, you know, it's fine. He can redevelop.
Yeah, honestly, even if this turn is lackey 0, it's still a pretty solid turn. Onto an empty board.
Ooh.
Frustratingly enough, Swidz is overloaded now, which means that he cannot actually do a play I was looking at, which was Ysera into a Ray of Frost on one of the minions and hoping that's enough to get there. Maybe a little bit risky.
You mean Alex Straza?
Oh, sorry. Apologies. Alex Straza. Too many dragons. Yeah, Alex Straza into a Ray of Frost cannot be done. Yeah. So Seiko has to go a little bit slower, I think.
And now he's overloaded next turn for 2 as well because of that lava burst, which locks it out once again.
I have trained for days. Useful things, eager to share.
It's so
Thought I had
puzzle
more
box
time.
into discover a 1-mana team. Back. Right, how much information does Swidz have on what sequence so far? Not much, right?
Not snipe.
Yeah. I think that might actually be his limit on information.
Yeah, I think so.
Oof. Big oof. Green border went off the A-wing. Yep. Sniped.
On the wings of ease.
Gotta be dragon time, right?
Again.
Why can't I hold all these Aceras?
It's one of the reasons I would have liked. I'm not sure when, but I would have liked Swidz to just drop one of these Ysera's, drop his Ysera by now, because so much health, it required direct removal, and
Choose soon.
4 attack is a good amount when your opponent's on 15 total, right? So it's not as if it does nothing. I don't know.
So I think this is potentially the turn. Because, Swidz still disagree. If you rewind through the last couple of turns, 2 turns ago was I have to play 1 extra minion into the Reno, right? Which I think it was right to do that with Draconid and not Ysera. The turn after that, he just wants to redevelop to threaten lethal. So he played like 9 power instead of 4 with Ysera, which I think is right as well. But now he's starting to slip away from having lethal.
Right.
And I guess he does technically set it up again with his plan. So maybe this is justifiable as well. But that did feel more like.
And the key for me as well is though, Ysera does have 2 cards that push 5 damage sometimes.
That's true.
As
that
well.
is true.
So there is Ysera's Awakening and Nightmare as well. So Seiko can't just go, oh, it's only 4 attack, I can take it, because it might be 9. So then that's suddenly a little bit scary as well. But we'll see what happens though. Kane from the Conjurer's Calling does get an extra attack in here, but his spells cost a little bit more. Also do a little bit more damage. Thank you, a very big buff to rapid fire actually.
1 and 3 respectively.
Thought I had more time.
Rapid fire is insane.
Yeah, only the half version though.
Yeah.
With spell, obviously.
I think this is worth a Ray of Frost. I like this.
I dream and the world trembles.
So yeah, a turn later than I was suggesting, but I think Swidz is in roughly the same mindset, right? Which is boards that represent damage for as long as I can, and then when I can't do that anymore, I'll play Ysera. I think that's a fine mentality to be approaching this endgame.
And what do you think about...
Life and hope of will
I was wondering whether it was an aggressive Ysera turn, but this way round's a little bit more threatening actual lethal, and then setting up for the Alex Straza, which I meant. I don't know. I'm naming all the Dragon Trunk today. I apologize. Yeah, this is a reasonable setup for the counter swing lethal, right? With the Alex Straza.
Yeah, I think if you want to go for surprise lethal, then get the minions in play first before you play the Alex. That does seem to make sense.
Is that?
No.
Is he 1 off? Oh no.
Oh,
he's 1 mana off, right?
13. Yeah, he can't play all 3. He can't
But
get
he
the
could-
3/4 to attack face before he casts Awakens.
Can he draw something? He has draws, right?
Mhm.
So we'll always start with Galakrond, I think, here? Makes sense?
Pretty sure, yep. It is fully invoked, by the way, as well.
Yep.
The miniature portrait.
Hence why the discussions of lethal is a big question mark, because there is the claw, which is obviously 5 damage. Tog?
It's Hog, indeed.
Oh, wait, you can make it attack now, right? That's lethal, isn't it? You can seal. Oh no, you can't seal fate. What am I talking about?
I got very lost, and so wait, what can happen?
It's
Has Raven just seen something
it's
cool?
stressing me out.
Yeah. Raven just spotted the sickest lethal. Oh no.
I mean, maybe seal fate was lethal. But got a kobold leg.
That is true. I mean, he did play it got Titanic laggy, so
That is
swing and
also
a miss.
And now, there just isn't the mana, is there?
What would make us rich?
Why is it every time I watch Swidz play Hearthstone, he just has a giant Ysera on them? You remember when he just like played like a 5/15 Unleashed version on like turn 6 the other day?
Past that.
It's just his thing. Swid's the big Ysera player. That's what they call him, right?
Thought I had more
We go for
time.
this in Nova? Nova Barrier? Oh!
That is Antean. That is the 10 damage Demon Hunter card. 10 damage when it awakens.
Job done.
So he needs 14 and he has 5. 9 with the Abyss. Can play Tog and draw more. I'm not sure what's left in his deck to draw, honestly. But there must be something if he's gone straight for 1. Oh, Krunks, right? Extra 5.
Still has Kronks, yep.
So you could actually have drawn Krunks and then Abyss, right, for lethal?
Yeah, he does play 2 copies of
there we go.
Abyss, so you can find the Abyss as well.
Is nigh.
You
There's
tricky...
Decimation, there is Seal of Fate, just in case it is a counterspell for some reason. Very nicely sequenced, even though he knows it isn't. And then Eviscerate the Prince. Beautifully done.
Never a bad habit to have, to just check off the secrets, as long as you're doing it while still giving yourself lethal opportunity. Swid's taking the win there. It's a little bit of a stretch and relax there, but I do agree, Swid hasn't looked as hyped up as we've seen him in the past on camera, so maybe one of his mates needs to go around and give him a quick slap in the face or something to just get him pumped for the game. But he is winning, though, and that's all that really matters. 2-1 over Seiko so far, and only his warrior left. And although Swidz is running the Pain Warrior, it is the bomb version, but honestly not a horrible deck to fall back on and to have as your last deck you take a victory with.
No, for sure. I do have some issues with this deck, just primarily the inconsistency of the early curve. When it comes to like Corsair cash draws, sometimes giving you a 4-mana weapon instead of a 3-mana weapon. Whereas when you're playing the Wacky Generation instead, you just always have a 3-mana weapon. Always know how your curve is going to work. Always play around it. Whereas Wrench Caliber can... I'm trying to avoid say throw a wrench in the works, but it's just what came into my head. I didn't mean to make that pun. I apologise. It was terrible. But yeah, obviously when this deck works, it does on the very few things. The Wrench Caliber, 3 swings, Blastmaster Boom on curve, then you draw a bomb, like the optimal pan out for this deck is insane.
Yeah, I think as well that it actually, in a roundabout way, has landed very nicely against Seiko in general, right? His lineup generally slower, not running Demon Hunter, running Highlander Mage, running Rogue, running the slow Galakron Priest, so arguably they're maybe not as good aggro, but the bomb package is actually going to do the work against this specific opponent of Swidz.
Yeah.
And here we go. Game number 4. Swidz only needs to take a win here with this warrior to call it a day on this match. 99 nice early victory in the round-robin section of Hearthstone Grandmasters here. Seiko, on the other hand, needs to get a win with his mage just to be able to stay in this one. There's one more after.
Job's done.
Nice start for Swidz, though. The Egg, the Corsair Cache, the Terran.
Ooh.
These are all good cards.
Yeah, Bomb Wrangler Terran potential here as well. On top of all of that, if you can start finding some like inner rage to get multiple bombs out of this thing and then tearing it all down, huge amount of damage just from bombs exploding early on. So many possibilities already just with how to play a curve with the first 5 cards.
Yep. Key point, I know you mentioned it earlier, but just a reminder, the Corsair Cache does not necessarily lead to a guaranteed 3-drop weapon, i.e. the Ankar. In this deck, as you mentioned a lot in the previous weeks, the Corsair Cache and then the gap turn into a 4-mana Wrench Caliber is much more common with Swidz.
Yep.
Which just means that the general line and lines and how you work through the first few turns is a little bit different than what you know.
Yeah, so right here you can see Corsair Cache. In the other deck, you get a Livewire Lance or you get Ankar here, and then you're like, okay, that 3/2 is not a big deal, I just kill it next turn every time. So I have a 3-mana weapon. Well, now you see that it's still kind of a problem on the next turn.
Overconfident Orc looks pretty good here. This is the simple play, but it lines up very well versus the Egg. Even if the Egg is buffed, it is very unlikely it even kills the Orc. And it also protects your Solarium for, say, Strong Ray of Frost or Arcane Breath turns. Not proccing the Egg opens up the Terran play, of course, but I think that's a fair risk for Seiko to make. Or take, is probably the better word.
Agreed. I think Seiko isn't playing Polymorph, so Swidz did have a little bit more leeway to make a big Terran if he wanted to. But I think it's honestly often a pretty big mistake to make in this deck. They just Terran boards that are just too good already, and you just rather have still had the board a lot of the time. I think more importantly in this scenario, Swidz has just kind of got forced into playing some tempo because Seiko's had a tempo opener himself for the deck playing.
Right. I will say that the Terrans that feel the most awkward for my opponent are normally the ones on one other minion. Maybe 2 others, right? You know, like just the early ones, because there aren't normally great answers for Terran early in the game that really don't punish, because obviously you don't normally only have to kill Terran, but then kill whatever he drops out. It's just double Ice Lance go, but I don't really think Cycle is impressive.
Double Ice Lance, imagine. Oh, Raven.
Ice Lance, sorry, Ray of Frost.
The flashbacks are coming. Oh.
I'm not with it. I don't know why I cannot call the cards by their names today. I do apologize. I'll work on that.
It's fine. I've only just recently learned that Seal Fate and Orphan.
I did like when you mentioned that earlier today, your attitude towards it was not, oh, I got it wrong. It's, why is it called that? So, like whoever named it is in the wrong clearly, because that's not how you want the card to be called.
Yes.
That was and I didn't raise it at the time, but it's just funny how you didn't. It wasn't even a joke. You just looked like, why is it even called that?
That is very true.
Maligos. Still not going to be castable this turn, but we'll give Seiko some powerful options going forward. Although I say that, Raven, why did you say such things that can clearly not be correct? This Frostbolt 0 mana is of course an option.
Yep, pretty sick 0 mana Ice Lance.
Yep. That was Ray of Frostbolt.
Hey.
The hitting does accomplish a thing in that any Ipper turns or whatever, or even a copy, like a plain copy of it, is only at 1 health, very manageable. It does open up a battle rage which would have already been there if Swidz chose to attack it anyway. But most importantly, it requires like a rampage to actually become a threat again, right?
Yeah, but that's kind of the problem with the preemptive trade, is that Swidz now does get to just rampage it and then attack with it. Rampage. Right? Which is kind of But yeah, I'm on board. The trade seems.
Someone's gotta lead the charge.
To double check, Swidz was running Rampage and he is running 2 up, so.
Yep.
You just never know with some of these players when they bring slightly different variants that, you know, what gets cut and what doesn't.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, he does have to make room for like Last Master Boom and a couple of other things, but he's playing 1 Korkron, no Grom, no X.
Who in their right mind
Basically, where his spaces come from. Unlucky. Zephyrus not active.
Job's done.
Synced up perfectly with the second swing of the Wrench Caliber, meaning that there are now a duplicate of bombs in Seiko's deck, just in case you are somehow unfamiliar with that mechanic, having lived through the last Bomb Warrior meta.
The one thing to remember at the moment, until this weapon is swung, is that a draw of 1 bomb would activate Zephyrus again, but if Swidz chooses to swing, then suddenly it needs to be 2 bomb draws to activate Zephyrus and Alexstrasza, which I feel is a lot further away than 1.
It is. I think it's why you see Seiko just doing his best to play tempo here, because he doesn't really have a late game plan right now, right? Like, look at his hand. Caligos?
Yeah.
Sure. The rest of it is a bunch of utter garbage.
One thing I will say though is without a battle rage, these are the real hard parts of playing this warrior. What do you do with this? If you go all in, I say all in, with your cards, then, well, outside of the Sky Patir, I guess, there's no real way to draw cards, which means that Swidz, if just something comes down that clears this board,
Whoa.
Swidz is in a world of trouble.
Yeah. This is very all in, and I find it very alarming from Switz's side.
But I genuinely think, at least for me, these are the really hard parts about the deck is, well, was Swidz supposed to just play even slower against the Reno Mage? Maybe because he's running bombs, maybe not. But it's like, it's so hard to work out when you have limited resources how far you're supposed to put your foot in, right? It's very difficult.
Fair. I guess he does have Corsair Cash to fall back on, so he is going to draw
What
some
to do?
of action.
What to do?
Which is a 50-50 chance now of drawing the Ankar.
Yep.
Then, like, well, does it draw him?
Gets him his second risky skipper, and then he's sort of back in a position where Battle Rage is real again. Like, yeah, there are a lot of things to consider here.
Time runs out on me.
Your wish is
Yep.
my suggestion.
Blood Fen Raptor. Take it. Honestly, I like this from Seiko. He really is just fixated on tempo play here as much as he can. Knows that his deck just really does not work the way that he's built it to be effective. So he's just playing minions and fighting for board.
Do you want to listen to a Raven special?
Oh, sure. Love it.
Bloodsworn Mercenary, the Sky.
Nice!
You liking it? You liking it? Is that enough spice for you?
I'm actually kind of into that. You know?
Not the worst play I've suggested.
It's
because
not.
I've suggested a lot.
Yeah.
Through sheer numbers, it's unlikely to be the worst play. But still, I don't know. The one thing Swidz is needing is card draw, and Seiko keeps freezing the Sky Patir out, not letting it proc. But that means it's there to be used either to help out with a Battle Rage, or more importantly, you could just duplicate it to draw 2 cards instead. It uses a Mercenary, but what's he going to Mercenary at the moment? There's a whole lot of nothing involved.
My hands now.
Nice.
Oh.
Cast the bomb. Easy game.
Such a weird selection. Well, like, is Bomb not the worst? Okay, no, he's going to go for Conjurers. I was confused.
I was expecting Ice Barrier personally, but okay.
Me too. That'll Bomb.
Why would you do that?
Conjurers, look at this board now.
Yes, but you're aware that bomb is a bomb.
Yes. This almost does 5 damage. It's 2 drops.
What now?
Yeah, I'm very surprised. I
Also,
guess again
how
another.
how has Bone Chewer Orc not made it into Pain Warrior?
2-3 guy.
Yeah.
It's not even called that. You debated me. It's called Bone Chewer Brawler Raven.
Is it an Orc?
Is it? I don't know. Is that an orc?
Yes.
Kind of like an orc.
Yep.
I'll show you who's
Seems underwhelming.
You just see the potential, right?
Your flaws.
Sure.
Like now, he could have
We
played
don't
the
play
Sky
like
Raider and then
Temple
Comet.
Berserker or a Barney. Right? Like, I don't know.
Maybe we
Isn't
should.
that impressive?
Very funny.
Yeah.
Someone's got to lead the charge.
Still 3 bombs remaining. That's what I was going to say before we go down the before we went down the orc tunnel. Just mechanics check for people who aren't fully aware. That does not function like tracking, for example. The fact that he didn't pick the bomb doesn't mean that it's coming on from the deck. Even the spell that he chose is still in his
Now he's down to 2. Right?
Now he's down to
Why not?
Yep.
So he needs to draw 1 more, which sounds very weird on 5 health. But if he wanted his Alexstrasza alive at least, but that's not going to be the important job. He really wants this amazing Reno down.
He really needs 1 more bomb! He appears to be at 3.
Nice all power.
5 cost spell.
5 cost, yeah. Reno does get him out of range of at least 1 bomb, but there's a Corcoran. There is no way to damage it. And there's no weapon for the South Sea now.
Oh, that'll do. That'll do nicely. Still 4 boom bots. He's now out of risky skippers, so there's no like immediate burst lethal or anything like that. And on top of that, Seiko has used some freeze effects already. He's used the Frost Nova. Blizzard would kill him anyway most of the time, so can't
Make
give
his
you a
one more-
compelling reason not to jam it.
Let's make his 1 more challenger beat up his own bombs.
Sure, can do that. It's enemy me.
Yeah, it is. I like the armor smith here. I don't think Swidz is overly worried about dying, and this board needs clearing. Probably going to involve damage now that Reno has been played. Why not just bank the extra and have a bit of a sticky minion at 4 health on the board? I like it. I like that though.
Don't like what,
Do you
sorry?
like the deckhand?
The fate of the world hangs in the
You
Filling
want
the
more-
board up
want
if there's
more
another
space.
freeze, right? Yeah.
It is, yeah, but the natural Frost Nova's gone, so it's basically this exactly, Kalagos into generated Frost Nova that you're playing around at that point. 'Cause, you know,
Yeah, I just
Blizzard-
wondered if that's just worth it.
Eh,
Play
maybe.
around, you know. There's a
Blizzard-
Corcoran in hand, right? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, Blizzard is going to help out
Dude.
quite dramatically with that problem.
Okay.
On off.
One off indeed.
Ooh, draw 3. There's been no Inner Ages cast, I believe.
Correct.
So Swidz now. Oh, he was weighing up Mercenary not for any good reason other than to draw 4
Draw one more
cards,
card.
which I think is completely fine. It looks very strange, but I fully get behind the Mercenary here. He only needs an Inner Age. Why not?
Tell you why not, because if he doesn't just play Raw Battle Rage, Wrench Caliber,
Your flaws are your
so it's not like cut and dry. Because now he doesn't have Wrench Caliber plus 4, whereas he could have done if Wrench Caliber was one of the
Oh.
draws. But it doesn't matter because the next 7 cards in his deck were all in a rage apparently, so that's just fine.
Just got to believe, and Swidz performed exceptionally well over the 3 Swiss weeks. That looks like it's not going to stop anytime soon. Did look a little bit dicey after that game number 1. Psycho's off-meta lineup, I would suggest, with no Demon Hunter, didn't appear to cut it, and Swidz just got there. Not only the power of Warrior, even with the bomb package, which I will reiterate, I think Swidz just having the bomb package against Seiko specifically is actually pretty good. But you know, the Zoo list did very well as well. So I think Swidz just I just got Seiko here, honestly, with this Rogue. I think if Seiko queued Rogue and not Mage, the outcome could have likely been exactly the same anyway.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we can oversell this kind of stuff. I think, honestly, what we saw from Swidz was just the standard gamer position of just, oh, I just lost a priest to all of my own cards. Like, come on, what's going on? Which is fine. Like 2 minutes later, he was up again and looked fine. So I think there was no real issue there whatsoever. Kept his head in the game quite nicely, and I think he's executed a pretty strong game plan. And I think, honestly, lineups has been the big strength of Swidz so far throughout this tournament, because I think he has still been making some little technical mistakes and maybe some strategic errors here and there, as most players tend to do. But I think the reason he's winning so much is that his lineups just seem to be more effective than everyone else at this point. Like, he had Zoo in his back pocket before everyone else came around to that. He's consistently stuck with this Bomb Warrior that no one else seems to be coming around to. But unlike the Yala situation, it's working for him. So it's much harder to argue with when you're, you know, the one person who's doing it. So yeah, I think his lineup is definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, it's something we've seen consistently throughout competitive Hearthstone, but I think has really shown itself in the past 3 seasons of Grandmasters is the early adopters to certain decks that end up being good get paid off a lot, right? Because we see, for example, the Combo Priest last year. The players who brought Combo Priest first were just winning all the games of Hearthstone. And now, you know, we've seen Zoo perform very well across all the regions that brought Zoo early. And now everyone's catching up. But Swidz and the other French guys and Gallon, they brought it first. Division A. That's just how it seemed to have gone. I'm not pinning it all on just one deck, but it's a repeat of what we've seen happen in these league sort of long drawn out formats, when if you're playing catch up, then you've spent like a week or 2 weeks worth of matches not playing